Welcome to the D6 Family Ministry Podcast, a place where ideas, principles, and personalities come together to give you a ministry advantage that empowers the church and home.
I don't know anything more important in our society or in the kingdom of God than to help the church, help the family.
Discipleship is not an event, it's a way of life.
And one day it just hit me that discipleship at home was not about doing more. It was about inviting Christ into what we were already doing.
The goal of family ministry is not families sitting on the couch holding hands and singing Kumbaya. The ultimate goal is families that love God, love people, and make disciples of all peoples.
So that's why you're here. You're here to say 1 hour a week, as significant and as awesome as it is, we know that it's not enough and we want to be intentional with every hour.
You're listening to the D6 Podcast. Here are your hosts, Marianne Howard, Ron Hunter, and Josh Wooten.
I am so excited about the coming D6 2021 conference. I am just so thrilled about it. I cannot wait for getting to see your faces.
I'm so excited. I just can't hide it. I'm about to lose control, but I think I like it. Oh, yeah. As the Pointer Sisters would say, in person, live.
You know, our ministry leaders have worked probably the hardest year of their entire lives. And I think they need a break, and attending a conference like this will feel like a retreat. It will feel like a reprieve, and they can soak in, they can worship. I'm just excited. Our team has been praying for a chance for this, just pulling away, gathering together, and having a rejoicing celebration time, sort of like that family reunion, all coming back together like we do. That's what I'm looking forward to, that sentiment of loving on those ministry leaders who have hurt so bad this past year. The other part is our exhibitors. There are some of them that will be attending our conference for the first time in 12 months, and they've not done a single other conference, and this is a chance for them to get back together as things are beginning to open up. I'm on flights somewhat regularly now, and planes are filling up. They have safety regulations built in, recycling that air. More and more people are traveling with confidence. And I realize that doesn't include everybody. And if you're a listener out there going, yes, but I care for my aging parents, or I've got a loved one who's going through chemo, and there's so many different stipulations why you need to continue to be super cautious. I get it. But for the rest who are able to get out, I think this is going to be one of the most healthy things you can do for yourself.
And there's a sense of, community amongst ministry leaders that you just cannot replicate online. We have been so often in isolation in doing what we're doing and alone on an island in many ways as we have ministered and navigated this past challenging season. And I think it's going to be very special to be in a room with other people who have been in the same boat, or at least in the same waters, maybe in a different boat, but to be able to lay eyes upon and worship together, to learn together, to grow together, and know that we are, for all intents and purposes, hopefully on the backside of this season, and have something to celebrate together. And I think it's going to be a truly special time. And for many of us, sometimes we take conferences and things like that for granted. And I think it's going to be a very special, memorable moment to be in a room with other ministry leaders again and doing this D6 conference, because it holds a special place in my heart. And as I do, it probably does for much of our audience as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, I tell you what we're going to do here. If you're a listener of ours on a regular basis, normally we come together, we have some banter among us as MCs, and then we launch into an interview of a ministry leader. We're setting aside this podcast to kind of reflect a little bit and look forward to a preview of the 2021 D6. So if you're looking for that interview, I just want you to know that we're interviewing the conference this time. We're going to give you a sneak peek. We're going to pull back the curtains, tell you about some things that are changing and what to expect. And I think you'll have some great takeaways. You'll be able to walk on site a lot more prepared than you would any other time. So that's our intent. Just want to tell you that up front. And if I can be a little vulnerable with you as the D6 conference director, we're anticipating a regathering of our conference much the way your local churches have regathered. We are not anticipating full house by no means. We're anticipating a similar percentage regathering that looks like your churches. And so it's going to be a little more intimate. It's going to be pretty special. It means that I think you'll get some more one-on-one time with speakers in the hallway, and there won't be 5 people bombarding them, maybe 1 or 2. And you're going to get some FaceTime with that speaker. You're going to get some FaceTime with some of our D6 staff and our breakout speakers and so forth. So I do believe this is going to be a wonderful gathering as we come back together. Let me ask this question of you guys: what's your favorite memories? And I'm gonna poke a little bit further. I want to say, what's your favorite memory related to a speaker topic, and what's your favorite memory outside of a speaker topic?
Last year, God used Christopher Yuan and his family in very profound ways. I work with students and I travel my state and dialogue with churches and private schools on sexual freedom. And so his story has played a huge part in, the ministry work that I do personally. And also I loved, I was really challenged by Christopher Yuan's mom talked about how to pray for a prodigal, and it landed on me heavy. And that is a praying, incredible woman. And so just the move of God through him and his family was profound for me. I think one of the things that I absolutely love, I have the opportunity to get to work and serve with D6 and Randall House, but I live in Texas. And so we don't get to see each other face to face. And so I am always excited to gather face to face and spend quality time with my D6 family. And you know what? I just wanted to say, when we say we're D6 family, to all of our listeners, I want you to understand behind the curtain, we are family. My boss at D6, it's Lena Wooten, and she loves me spiritually. Our team, we pray together. We're in a group chat. We encourage each other. We're sisters in Christ. And that's how we operate. So I'm looking forward to just getting to worship with my sisters and be with our team face to face. I also get to work with D6 Plus, and I love listening to ministry leaders and hearing their challenges and hearing their successes and hearing your stories. I've gotten to know many of you on a personal level. We have an incredible community within our D6 Plus community. And so I love getting to connect face-to-face with my D6 Plus community. So those are some of my places and favorites.
I agree with you. That Christopher Yuan talk last year is funny. I was looking forward to him speak, but one of the things that really stood out, it was as much about his mother and her praying self in her room and the way she prayed for her son through that. But one of the things that kind of threw me for a curveball the last conference was John Forrest. He has always been the kind of, he's the director of fun. I believe he is the D6 director of fun. It don't even have that. If he doesn't have that title yet, Ron, we need to go ahead and dub him
like a cruise ship director.
Oh, yes.
Sir John Forrest, director of fun. And that has been his role, but he got up and gave a talk in the main stage, and I got to see a different side of John that I hadn't seen before. And it just felt like family. It's like, it's a very much a family ministry conference, not only in name, but as you get to know these people who serve in different roles on these teams around and seeing the different facets of not only their personalities, but their heart for Jesus and to serve the church. And that is one thing that I think really separates this conference. A lot of times there are some incredibly well-known speakers that you've recognized, and then sometimes you may see one, come across one, you're like, I don't recognize this name, but wow, the content is always just never disappoints. It's just, it always, I leave every talk and every conference just full. And I'm looking forward to that feeling again. And I'm looking forward to connecting with other, some of these resource providers that you've seen and that you've used throughout the years, and be able to connect with them. And I just look forward to getting back with our family ministry community.
Well, D6 conference is 12 years, started in 2009 in Dallas. We've been in various cities around North America: Dallas, Louisville, Greensboro, now Orlando. And God has launched it worldwide. One of my favorite memories was one year we're in Louisville, and an international ministry group of 3 different ministry groups decided to come together and partner and said, we want D6 to be our landing meeting point. And we had 24 different nations represented that year, and multiple people from each one of those countries. And they had a meeting the day before D6, they attended D6, and they had a meeting after D6. It was at that meeting that one of our leaders from one of those countries came up and says, Ron, I want to host D6 in our country next year. And we've helped other nations launch, and we usually recommend an 18 to 24 month window. And there's certain criteria that they have to pass the test and be vetted on before we say yes. We don't let just anybody host. And I began to vet this person, and she launched within that period of time. We've green lighted it. And we've seen, from that meeting, several countries launch. So Singapore launched, and Malaysia launched. We got a chance to do some 1 days in Indonesia and into China. And we're going to do some other countries as well. We're now in South Korea. And God is just using these moments to globally teach our families and ministry leaders what our nation gets a chance to soak in on an annual basis for these last 12 years. So my moments, I'm not going to pick a speaker because we've had 270 of them, and I don't want to show any favorites. And so I'm going to refrain from that. I'm going to tell you my favorites are hearing from the people outside of that main stage room, the auditorium area, outside of the breakouts, hearing the stories of how D6 moments happen in the home and how they happen in the church. I really like it when churches tell me, here's how we're facilitating home discipleship, because that's the struggle churches have today. They can do D6 really well on campus, but they're not facilitating it as strongly in the home. And the ones who do, they reap the rewards many times over when they can make it happen. That's my favorites. You guys have the list of speakers coming up for this time, and how many total breakouts? I just said that number before we got on air.
82.
82 breakouts. That's your number of options that you have. So we're going to have 6 breakout periods, and there will be 2 on Wednesday, 2 on Thursday, and 2 on Friday. And inside of each of those windows, you will have between 12 and 16 options to pick from. And we will divide them based upon where your area of ministry is. Like if you're in student ministry and you minister to teenagers, you may want to go to a student track. If you want to deal with grandparents or a family ministry model or parenting, we have tracks for each one of these. We also have apologetics, and we have special needs, and we have what we call unusual areas that could be a little bit of a catch-all. And these are areas that don't fit their own category. And when you read about the description in the title, the Holy Spirit will prompt you and go, yeah, you know what? You may not need that, but somebody in your church does, and you need to go on their behalf, take good notes, and go back and encourage them. And that's the way you should approach that. Josh, you've taken staffs from your church to D6. I want you to talk through the language, the strategy language you suggest, not only to your team, but maybe to others, before they go on to a conference like this where there's so many different options. It's easy to get overwhelmed. Give us the pep talk you would give to your staff rolling onto a conference like this.
Well, the first thing and foremost that this is one of the few conferences designed for your entire staff, that there is something for everyone, no matter what your role is at your church. And that is very rare. Most conferences are very ministry specific, or at least an area specific. And this is one, I usually took advantage of. It was easy to get my next gen team or my family ministry team on board, but I would always take advantage of when you guys ran the promotions where sign your team up and your senior pastor goes for free. It's not a hard sell, specifically like this year, because the location is in Orlando, Florida. Usually you guys have
Which we do that every year, by the way, Josh. So if you're listening, every year we have a code for that. If you don't know what the code is, call in, we'll give it to you, but it should be Bring My Boss, I believe, is the universal code, and they get in free.
And what I love is it allows us as a team, not only like D6's curriculum, every age on the same page, it allows us to become unified as a church staff, to come together and realize that we are all on the same team. There is no need for silos. We are trying to accomplish the same thing. And it really, when we are unified in vision, we are unified in mission, there is nothing that we cannot do. And there is no better proponent than getting your senior pastor on board for what is going on within the next generation of ministries and for family ministry. When it comes from the top down, that is when things change. That is when your church will grow. That is when you will all become better ministers and pastors, when you're all working together. It's you can't put a price tag on that. And I've seen family ministries and student ministries and kids ministries all grow and thrive when a senior pastor comes to the D6 conference and catches that vision. Not to mention the team building that goes on within your own team. When you have unhurried time, you get to know people on a road trip. You build bonds that you can't build in the office Monday through Friday. And, I know this is weird, but I always, and I'm warped and people will come against it, but I love when things don't particularly go as planned all the time within the confines of those road trips, because you've got a great story. You have a great, do you remember that time? I remember we had our plane, everybody missed, there was a missed flight and things got mixed up, and I'm sitting at the airport and I was like, do you remember that time we went to D6 and our travel arrangements got completely hijacked and it was just all over the place and we got stuck in the airport for 4 hours that time? That was awesome. And they're like, what are you talking? I'm like, this is right now. They're like, oh my gosh, what is wrong with you? But you have those memories, and when things are, I think it's beautiful to be able to go to these conferences and learn, and to be able to, I think it's very important for teams to schedule time to really just digest and break down what you've learned and come together and have those times to just kind of catch what others are gleaning, whether it's a common space in the hotel or in somebody's room or outside somewhere, just finding time to just really come together and gather and glean wisdom from one another, what you've learned in those different particular breakouts or sessions that you attend.
Josh, I've traveled with you many times, and you are a blast to travel with. We've traveled and spoken together apart from D6 and other churches, and you always are so easygoing. I appreciate that about you. I think you've opened up a door here, that downtime. Let's talk through some options in the Orlando area of items that they can do with their team. Now, there's some easy, obvious ones. You think, wow, if you got an extra day, you can always take in a theme park. So let me ask you guys, if you could pick one, and there's a bunch in the Orlando area, but if you could only recommend people go to one theme park, which one are you going to recommend them to go to?
I've been to all of them within the past year. Like I'm a Disney nut, so probably the right / and the wrong person to ask for this question. If you have not been to Galaxy's Edge and you are anywhere remotely familiar with Star Wars, I highly suggest, if you got one, to do that. It's the Star Wars theme land within Hollywood Studios.
Okay, so Hollywood Studios would be the theme park on that one. Marianne, what would you pick?
I'm going to say Universal.
Yeah.
it's a blast. And part of it's the nature and age of my children. They're older. I mean, I have a 10-year-old and a 14-year-old. And so it's kind of older boy, things. And so I think it's incredible. I'm always wowed. So I would suggest Universal.
That's cool. Last year, our family went down. We gathered our adult kids and their spouses, and we did Universal before going to into D6. And before that, here's an off-the-wall item. It's not a little bit further of a drive, but you can travel about an hour and 10 minutes and be at the Kennedy Space Center. And that's a day-long experience too. Or you can do it in a half day without a problem. It's priced similarly to the theme park, so be prepared for that. Not quite as much, about half, but still pricey. But it's a great experience to go through the Kennedy Space Center. For some who are looking for a little more serious and different take on it, the Holy Land experience is also an option there. And here's a radical one. I took our board of directors down, and we did not have a full day to spend. We had about 3 hours, 4 hours, and I took them on an airboat ride. And we had to split up into two groups. There were 11 of us, and we split up into two different airboats, and we got the chance to see tons of alligators and wildlife and things of that nature, just out in nature setting out there in the Everglades.
I wanted to just throw out there, Ron and I are big time foodies.
Oh man, yeah.
And so if you need some ideas for good places to eat, find Ron or I, because we can give you a list.
We will. And we're not going to tell you, my favorite thing going down there is getting seafood. And one of my favorite all-time seafood restaurants is right there. And I'm not telling you what it is because I don't want to when I go. I don't want there to be a line. But there's also some great Cuban food, authentic Cuban food in the Orlando area. If you like that flavor, and I do. My son made a couple of trips to Cuba, mission trips, and he loves getting down there and eating some authentic Cuban flavors.
Yes.
So yes, hit us up, and you can always Google or Yelp and spot some great things. I would say avoid the touristy trap restaurants and get some of the hole-in-the-wall places. You can get some great food in there.
Absolutely.
But this is the type of thing that Josh was talking about, though. Getting around the table in a hole-in-the-wall place, going off to an airboat ride, or that van ride over to the Kennedy Space Center would be the debrief time. Then you go have fun in the Kennedy Space Center, and you debrief again on the van ride back over to Orlando. A lot of fun with that. Let's talk speakers for this year. You guys have both had the list here. I tell you what, why don't you focus on a couple, 3 breakouts that you are looking forward to, and I will prep to give them a rundown on the main stage speakers. How about that?
I wanted to just read a couple of the ones that are coming that I'm really intrigued by and excited by. Lydia Randall doing Reach and Disciple Busy Families. And then a second one that she's doing is How to Invest in Your Family as You Go When You're Always on the Go. Okay, hello. That's just drawing me in, Lydia.
That is so appropriate. And, I have never heard Lydia speak that she doesn't give me a new idea, if not 5, on every one of the times she talks with some principles I love. Gifted speaker.
Absolutely. I'm also a big fan of the Jedi, Richard Ross.
Yes, yes.
I believe that Richard Ross is a ministry Jedi. And if you're not familiar with Richard Ross, he is all-encompassing when it comes to generations. He has a real heart for teenagers and parents. And it is well worth your time to go sit underneath him. I mean, Ron always says learners are leaders. And I just want to say to each of you as ministry leaders today, as you're listening, none of us know what we're doing in this season and in this stage with COVID and just life in general. Everything has shifted for us as we know it as church leaders. And so I think this conference has an incredible opportunity for us to learn brand new things, brand new ways to love, new ways to learn, new ways to walk alongside, new ways to disciple.
Yes, and if you plan on attending a Richard Ross breakout, I highly suggest you may get there early because, as she said, you may be sitting under him. I know there have been plenty of times where I've had to go and find me a spot against the wall on the floor, but I will gladly sit on the floor at the feet of Richard Ross and learn from his wisdom. Another one that I'm looking very forward to checking out, and this is from actually one of my mentors, Jim Weidman, is leading a breakout on working alongside millennials, because Father Time seems to still be undefeated. I am growing older, and as I've grown older, my staff has grown very much younger. The oldest person on my staff has just turned 30 years old. So I'm working with a bunch of millennials, and I'm looking forward to gleaning some wisdom from Jim in that area. And also always looking forward to a good John Forrest. He's the object lesson king. So I'm always looking forward to sitting in on one of his breakouts and stealing all of his great ideas that the Lord gives him.
A friend of mine is coming this year, and he's new to the D6 family, and he's doing 2 different breakouts. He's incredible. He's blogged for us this year. His name is Josh Proctor. One of his breakouts is going to be called Sex, Porn, and the Gospel. And he's also doing one called God's Purpose and Design for Sex and Sexuality. This is a over-sexualized culture. We're all navigating trials and new paths in this area, and it will be well worth your time as a parent and as a ministry leader to hear from Josh in this area.
Yeah, he wrote a great blog for that you should definitely go check out, to kind of give you a little heads up about Josh, that has been very well responded to on the blog that D6 puts out. Josh is just incredible in that area, and I think it's very much needed in some of those taboo subjects that nobody really wants to talk about. He's got a great way of just laying it out there, and I look forward to hearing from him.
He definitely makes it not seem so scary.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You know what? We're going to take a break, short commercial break. When we come back, I'm going to walk you through the main stage speakers, and we'll hit a couple more breakouts, and we'll wrap up the day. We're looking forward to seeing you on the other side of this commercial break.
Start connecting with your family today with the D6 Family app, available for free. Based on Deuteronomy 6, D6 is the leading voice in family ministry. Scripture teaches that parents are the primary disciplers of their children. The D6 Family app delivers resources that are updated weekly and designed to equip you for generational discipleship. Resources include family fun questions, weekly splinks, parent pages, family fun nights, foundational talks, the D6 podcast, and more. Connecting with your family has never been this easy or fun. Download the D6 Family app today.
Thanks for listening. This is the way that we keep the podcast going, is from supporting these items. The podcast is free to you. It's not free to us to produce. And so this is just a chance for us to jump in there and highlight some ways to help make all this happen. And what we'd like to do is walk you through the D6 lineup for main stage. And as Marianne mentioned a moment ago, every year we bring back what we consider the leading thought leaders in family ministry, but they are always giving us new content. They're coming up with new areas. They're watching those trends. They're adapting. And so you could sit under Richard Ross every single year and walk away with one, if not more, aha moments, truly from that Jedi mindset in family ministry for sure. But we're always incorporating in new voices. Again, that would not be possible 12 years and 270 speakers later on that one. So that's why we have done that. We're always incorporating in new ones. And so as we look at the main stage, this is not in any particular order, okay? This is not the way the lineup is scheduled. This is just hitting their highlights in there. We've got Tim Elmore coming in talking about Generation Z Unfiltered. And he's dealing with that from the standpoint of this generation has grown up with smartphones, social media, mass shootings, rising levels of anxiety, recessions, even the current pandemic. All of this has shaped their reality. And who these kids are and how do they lead this generation is up to the ministry today to help shape where they go. So he's using timely advice from Generation Z Unfiltered in this latest book that he has literally just released. And this session is going to provide insight into the generation of kids that we lead today and provide practical tips on how to do it well. So that's going to be his talk. We have a new voice on the stage with Arlene Pelican, and she's a digital guru, and her topic is screen time for kids. Now what? Screen time for kids. Now what? You know, with everybody being forced in the home, she's admitting over this past year, the screen time has skyrocketed. How does family tame this technology? And what does it mean with online school and contacting friends that they can't see in person? They're having to be on their screens. And how do we navigate these habits and break out of this in ways that are more healthy and create good ones around these devices? And I think she has been covered by some major national news media sources that very much a leading expert on that. Valerie Bell is constantly with her ministry with Awana, talking about resiliency in kids and children's ministry and shaping our future generations through intentional discipleship among these little ones. So her title of her talk is, "But There Was a Church, From Lesser Things to a Fruitful Future." And she's talking about the crisis that we've been in and how do we deal with that fruitful discipleship that grows out of this journey that our kids are in and leading them into a lifelong habit and attitude of discipleship and captivating that role that the church plays in fulfilling the mission of childhood discipleship. Then I want to move down to Jay Strother. Jay is if we're going to call Richard Ross a Jedi, this guy has been in training under people like Richard Ross and Timothy Paul Jones and numerous others. Every time I'm around Jay, he and I just swap ideas. He was the original person I heard the recommendation for canoeing the mountains from that really made a difference in my world. And we get together, not as often as we should, and we just talk through what are those trends, what are we seeing out there. He wrote a chapter in the book Recalibrate, and I wanted him, even though we released Recalibrate at our last D6 conference, Jay did not get a chance to, not all the speakers got a chance to deliver their talks on the main stage, and I felt like his talk needed to be there, and so we wanted him at our next D6 to do so. And it's on young adults. His title is Young Adults Are Not the Gap into Adulthood. Drawing from this chapter that he wrote, he will help us examine the unhealthy norms of fewer young adults being active in the church life and discuss how to recalibrate the ministries to be inclusive of young adults and examine those long-term strategies for health of our young leaders. And he's going to give you a metric to measure it by and know how you're doing well, because young adults don't seem to think that they fit the family ministry narrative based upon their stage of life. And he'll show you why that is not true. Ryan Frank's going to talk on who, not what. And he's going to talk about confidence in leaders. Sometimes we're really, really bad about feeling like we're called in our certain areas. And he's going to talk about stepping up and being who we're called to be. I'm going to deliver a talk that kind of been alluding to here. I've entitled it, After 12 Years, 270 Speakers, What We've Learned About Family Ministry. And I am going to pick some of my favorite highlights that fits the core ministry philosophy of church and home and name the speakers and what they've done for us over these 12 years. And I'm going to focus in on home and that missing element. So many churches are rocking the at-church side, but still struggling with the at-home. And we're going to talk about that heart connect and what can we do about it. And then lastly, we're going to put a panel together. And the academic panel is going to be made up of our key seminaries and universities that have been with us from the beginning and some that have joined more recently. And this panel is going to talk through trends and concerns of family ministry because they're out on the front edge. They are literally leading the shaping of one's philosophy and direction as people are launched into ministry, and they're keeping track of this. And then there's one talk that I think you're going to also enjoy that will happen on the main stage in an evening, and it's by Tim and Darcy Kimmel. It's called A Grace-Based Marriage Filled with Grace-Filled Sex. And I have heard them deliver this talk at D6 Singapore. And when I heard them deliver this talk, I said, next year you got to be at D6 delivering this together. And that's what they're going to plan to do. It's funny. It's dealing with a tough topic, but with a lot of humor, the way Tim can in such wonderful ways. So that's our main stage lineup. Which one jumped out at you guys?
Tim Elmore always has great stuff, but I'm to be honest, that Arlene Pelicane, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes.
Yeah.
My
You know,
knowledge.
that is a subject that more and more parents are wrestling with, dealing with screen time, how it is devices and technology have been uh, more and more just infused with how we do everyday life, and how do you build healthy boundaries with that, and because I do believe it's robbing us of some social skills and some interaction, and the time that we are spending with our faces in a screen is skyrocketing, and I'm old school. I want to see if there's a way to find a more healthy balance in that, so I'm hoping to glean some wisdom from her in regards to that subject.
I'm looking forward to Jay Strother. His podcast interviews and his chapter in Recalibrate have been monumental for me. He joined us for reopening the church during the COVID time, and he had some great ideas, very creative, very practical. I love his heart for church transition between graduating from high school and college and becoming adults and just knowing their place. And he's a great leader. He's very creative and he's very practical. I'm also looking forward to hearing yours. I always walk away challenged and just, I leave there going, I didn't think of that. So I'm excited about for all of it, because every time I leave the D6 conference, I leave going, I didn't think of that. God, thank you for putting that in all of their hearts to share with us. So excited.
I am. I'm excited. I think this is going to be a year that's going to be one we look back, kind of like Josh mentioned before, when you get delayed on that flight for 4 hours, it's not what you expected. We're going to come into an environment that is COVID protected. Both Marriott and the convention center have rules that we're going to need to follow that will include social distancing while still having those wonderful conversations. Masks will be required in all common areas, so it will be a safe space. The World Marriott Center is a world-class property that cares deeply about the safety of their guests. So, in fact, they're going to remove cash they have already done this. They've removed cash from their entire commerce system. They're not even handing off those kinds of items. They're not doing maid service unless requested. And the only place that you can use cash is tipping your valet or room service, leaving it behind in there. So this is going to be a safe, protected, wonderful environment that you can come to with your team. And I think we're going to look back at it much like that delayed flight and go, man, that was not the typical D6 conference, but it's one of my favorites that I got to be a part of. And 3 or 4 years from now, some of you are still going to be able to look back and go, I was at every single one, or I was at every single one for the past 5 years. So we want you to come. If you've not already planned, bring 2 or 3 team members. And I think our co-host here would echo this. Don't come without your spouse. This is a family ministry conference, and you need to do life together and you need to do ministry together. And each of you are going to see this from different lens.
Our team was meeting earlier and just talking through the rest of God and what it means to rest and Sabbath. And so I just want to say to each of you as you're listening today, I don't know about you, but I need rest. Yeah. And not just a nap. I need spiritual rest. I need spiritual respite. I need to be poured into, and I need to be in the presence of God with other ministry leaders. That's something that my heart needs. And so I just want to encourage you, if you're in a place where you need rest, I want to encourage you. D6 Conference 2021 could really be a place of rest for you.
Yes, I want to echo that, Marianne. And as you even say that, I think sometimes people come to conferences, feel like they've got to do every single thing and go to every breakout. And I just want to encourage you to give you the space to, if you need to take a couple hours and just go sit by the pool and just be in the sunshine and take it in and get that rest that way. I think it's a time for you. A D6 conference is a time for you to come and be rejuvenated and to have your passion reignited, but to also find that rest and a time to just exhale from this season that we've had, and just so that you would leave full with everything that God has for you.
I'm looking forward to a seafood meal.
Yes.
And rest. Yes, I am.
Yes.
No, definitely. I can't wait to see many of your faces. So I'm looking forward to getting back together. That is my heart's cry. And look forward to seeing you in just a few short weeks. Next week, we've got J.D. Greer. We're going to be interviewing on one of his book titles that he is very, very passionate about. And you will not want to miss that. Until then, we'll be praying for you that you'll have engaging, connecting opportunities among all generations in the area of family ministry and discipleship. Take care, and we'll see you next week.
You've been listening to the D6 Podcast. You can learn more about D6 at d6family.com.